Hey y'all, welcome to Messy Motives, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Sincerely Jazz, here to guide you through cases that are wild, twisted, and just plain messy. Now, we are back with Jasmine's top 5 craziest holiday murders. Coming in at number 4, we have the chilling, haunting Lawson Family Murders. On today's episode, I'll be going over the case with you, giving you some details, some dramas, and of course, always sprinkling in a little bit of my own thoughts and opinions. Now, if you're new here, welcome to the madness. If you're a returning listener, hey girl! Let's get into this next case. Picture this. It's 1929. Okay, you live on a quiet tobacco farm in rural North Carolina. Now, from what I was able to find, this is right along in Stokes County. I don't know how far that is from Charlotte, but yeah. The sun is barely set, the air is cold, families are inside their homes, everybody's getting ready to go to sleep. And then boom, gunshots. Not one, not two, not three, but multiple gunshots. And these gunshots are so loud that they just start, echoing across the farmland, because the farmland is real bare, so you can just hear it like straight from neighbor to neighbor. And so you run out to the window and you're like, what is all of this? You start seeing people gather outside their homes, and you hear people whispering, and you're like, what in the hell was that? And then you go outside and they're like, yeah, I think that came from the Lawson's farm. The Lawsons? What you mean that came from the Lawsons? No, not the Lawsons. Yes. There's no way that those sounds that sounded like gunshots came from the Lawsons. It's just really hard to believe that, right? But unfortunately, by end of this night, you will find out that in fact those gunshots did come from the Lawson family. And you also come to find out that multiple fatalities occurred. Now, before we get into the horror of this tragic night and what happened, y'all know I gotta give you some background on who the Lawsons were and who are the characters in this, okay? And when I say characters, I'm not talking about story. Like, this is a real life story, y'all. Okay, so we have the Lawson family. They were actually from North Carolina. Now, they weren't from Germantown, but from what I found, Charles Lawson had bought some farmland in that area, and him and his wife Fanny, once they got married, moved to Germantown or Stokes County, North Carolina. Okay, so they were a hardworking family. In every sense of the way, they seemed to be very normal. And of course, this was during the Great Depression. So 1929 was the start of the Great Depression. This is when the stocks are falling, the stock market crashed, recession. It's just like a really, really rough time for America. Now, Charles was a tobacco farmer. So him and his wife Fanny, they met in 1911 and had 8 children. One of the children died in 1920, so they weren't a part of this tragedy. So records are showing them as having only 7 kids, but we still got to acknowledge the baby that went to heaven, right? So they technically had 8 total kids. Now, they were a struggling family, just like everybody else during the Great Depression. Money was tight, food was scarce, and life was hard. But you know what they had? They had each other. Okay? They had each other. Now, I told y'all that Charles had moved here to Germantown, and that was 1927 on Brook Cove Road. But from every sense of the word, the community described them as a very well-to-do family. They were respected, they were church-going, they were quiet, they kind of kept to themselves, but I guess like on the outside, some people thought they weren't doing as bad as they were, but looks can be deceiving. Okay, their children were described as polite, well mannered, good kids, good, smart, intelligent kids. Fanny was a devoted homemaker, and I think that was probably common during this time. A lot of the women stay home and the men worked, so that doesn't seem too off, right? Basically, this was the last family that you would ever expect something from like this. Okay, and at this point, you're like, Charles, what's going on? Like, seriously. In the months leading up to the murders, neighbors had started to notice that Charles was acting weird. Okay, he was having mood swings. He was very withdrawn, even from his family life and tending to his farm. He just wasn't the same Charles. Now, there wasn't a lot of like background I could find on Charles. Really, the only thing I could find was that Charles was a tobacco farmer during the 1920s, and he married Fanny, and then he moved to Germantown because I think his brother and sister lived in that area, so they kind of had like their, family land. But yes, so some people said that Charles was acting paranoid, and that others say that maybe the financial pressure and the Great Depression was just getting to him. Which, I mean, I think that's to be expected, right? Like, the Great Depression lasted forever. It feels like. It feels like we're in a Great Depression now. But, things are not as bad now as they were during the Great Depression. Y'all know how, like, those old church people be like, Lord, I'm just trying to be in the number. Well, Charles didn't want to be in the number. Okay? Charles did not want to be affected by the Great Depression. But at this time, it's like, okay, food is already scarce. I think it's expected to be that you're going to be affected by the Great Depression during this time. I guess this is the kind of stress that can crush people. Look at our economy today. People are struggling. Violence is high. It's just a rough time in America currently and during the Great Depression era. But here's where things start to get a little messy for me. Okay, Charles, remind you, I told you Charles had 7 children. He had maybe 2 sons and 5 daughters. But Charles became fixated on his oldest daughter, Marie. Marie was 17. And she was the oldest of the girls. And so I'm going to pause for a second and be very careful with my wording here, because this part of the case is a little disturbing and I don't want to be inconsiderate or rude. But from what I was able to find, many people have come to the investigators and researchers saying that Charles was abusing his oldest daughter. Neighbors have reportedly confirmed this, and for me, that just puts everything into a complete different light. And here's where I start to think, it's like, okay, did the wife, Fanny, did she know Charles was essaying his daughter? If it's true, I just hate that, like, because this case was so long ago, it was so hard to find concrete evidence of this. So it's like we won't really know if this was the truth. So I don't know. From what I've researched, this could have very well been a possibility of why Charles killed his whole family. Now, this is where it starts to get weird. Weeks before this Christmas tragedy, Charles takes his wife, Fanny, and their children into town. Now, supposedly, he took them into Winston. And so he took them and bought them brand new clothes, new dresses, new shoes. And then he scheduled a full professional family portrait. And so this is my thing. This is during the 1920s. 1929 to be specific. The Great Depression had just started. My question is, 1, where did he get this money from to book a photo shoot? Two, why is he doing this? Like, as a girl who follows true crime and watches a lot of it, I feel like he was doing this as a planned effort. Okay, I feel like he was being very methodical and very intentional with his actions before he killed them. Like, this, like, just gives I'm planning to murder y'all, and I need a way to memorialize this. Because if you go to my YouTube and you're actually watching this podcast, you'll see where I have posted a picture of the family and how they were dressed up. And this ain't no like regular clothes. These are like, you know, like those big fluffy dresses. Like, they are dressed down. Okay, so I just think this was just a very intentional crime that Charles planned. Now let's talk Christmas morning, December 25th, 1929. The Lawson family were starting their days. They were eating breakfast. The kids were excited. Santa had just came. And despite this being the Great Depression time, they were still thankful and still happy. Okay, church was being discussed, and everybody was just really in their good morning era. Now, the only thing that we do know is that at some point during this day, Charles decided to change everybody's life. He decided to go out in his barn, get a shotgun, and gun down his family. Yes, this is the devoted husband and father who is gunning down his own family. And one by one, he begins to start killing his children and his wife. So first, he kills Fanny, who's on the porch. Now, then he kills two of his daughters, and that's like one after the other. Now, this is the thing with him killing his daughters. So, reports have stated that when he shot his daughters, he actually dragged them to his barn, put rocks underneath their head, and then crossed their arms across their chest. And if you know anything about behavioral analysts or whatever, you'll know that they say that this is like a murderer's signature, or like sometimes it can be like a way to like honor the victims or something like that. It's just like I don't know, like to me, I think that just shows how methodical and intentional he was. The fact that he dragged them from the house to the barn, put rocks underneath their head, which we don't know why he did that, and then crossed their folded arms. Like, that's a little weird, Charles. So then he shot his son. Now his son, one of his sons, was about 2 years old. This one started running once he heard the gunshots. But Charles, in his rage, chased him down and shot him too. Like, that is so sickening. Like, these are school-age kids, by the way. Okay? School-age kids. One by one, methodically, intentionally, he shot his children. Now, remember I told y'all that he had 7 living children. He only shot 6 that day. You know why? Because his oldest son, which I don't know the oldest son's name, he was sent away for like to go to town to, you know, maybe do a couple errands for Charles. Now, this is my theory. I think Charles intentionally sent his son away that day so that his son wouldn't be there when he shot his sisters and younger siblings. I think he did this because maybe his son was bigger and stronger than him, and maybe he would have stopped Charles from annihilating his family. So maybe Charles did this as a protection mechanism to be able to like carry out his full plan. So after Charles had shot his whole family, Charles then goes out into the woods, and y'all know what he did. Shot himself. Yeah. And I'm not gonna say my thoughts and opinions on this, but I don't know. I just think it's kind of selfish. Like, you already shot your whole family. and now you shoot yourself because you don't want to face the consequences of your actions. Like, come on, bruh. I can't. Like, for real, like, what kind of demons do you have to be fighting to wake up on Christmas Day, Jesus born day, and decide that today is the day you wipe out your entire family, your entire legacy? Them some strong demons. Like, that is ridiculous. And for me, this is where the motive of the case becomes one of the most debated parts of this story. Was it financial stress? Was it mental illness? Because reports have stated that maybe Charles had a underlying issue, like mental issue. I think I remember reading that he had got hit in the head when he was younger, and this may have caused like mental issues. That I was only able to find like one really story on that, so I don't know how true that is. But at the end of the day, I think Charles was in enough right of his mind where he was able to plan to take them to go buy them some new clothes and then come back home after they done did a family photo shoot and then kill them. So to me, that doesn't scream I had mental issues. But I'm not a psychologist. And then was it the fear that his essaying of his daughter might get out and might get exposed, and maybe he would be exiled from this town? Now, Germantown ain't that big, so maybe during that time it was just one of those things where he would get shunned. Who knows? Now, the police never come on time, but I will say this time the police came quick. Okay, the community was in shock. After all, this is during the 1920s. Okay, a small community. This is probably shared family land, and this got around quick to the neighbors. You know, people are in shock. They're not even really accepting that Charles was the one that did this. They're trying to come up with 1 + 1, and they're like, oh yeah, we think an outsider from the town came in and did this. And the officers are like, no, the evidence is clear. Charles did this. Charles killed his entire family and then shot himself. But as for the reasons why, no one really knows the exact reason why Charles decided to do this. And so as the investigation unfolded, secrets about how the Lawson family dynamic began to emerge. And so now we're going to get into the dark theories behind Charles' motive, the rumors that the town tried to bury, and the haunting legacy that the Lawson family has still left to this day. So because this case didn't just end, it only gets messier. Okay, so authorities arrived at the Lawson family home and they saw the scene. They saw that the children were scattered throughout the house, bodies laying on the floor. There were bodies in the barn because remember I told you Charles had put rocks underneath the girl's head and then crossed their arms, and then they go out in the field and see Charles. Cause yeah. So then investigators were able to quickly confirm that yes, Charles Lawson, the well-to-do, devoted, well-respected family man, had murdered his entire family as well as himself. The entire community of Germantown was in shock. Okay, people were openly crying and weeping on the streets. The church was in prayer, as they should be. Okay, neighbors, they just couldn't accept that Charles Lawson had did this. Okay, it was just bad. Okay, no one could accept that the quiet, humble, devoted husband Charles Lawson had killed his entire family. Now, I think it's important to talk about the different theories that have been developed surrounding this case. Now, I have my thoughts and opinions, of course, on these, but this is what investigators and reports could come up with. So they said the first theory is that because the stock market had crashed in 1929 and the Great Depression was going on, Families were losing everything, losing jobs. They were starving. They were losing hope, and it was just extreme financial pressure. And because he had recently bought the farm, maybe he was drowning in debt and he was just overwhelmed. Okay, and maybe he was worried about losing his farm, or losing his family that way. Like, it was just a lot of financial pressure. And like, in a sense, I can understand that, because I feel like a lot of men can relate to the pressure of being the sole provider for their family. So they feel like, hey, if I don't provide for my family, then we're going to fail. And men don't want to fail. So like, from that perspective, I can understand it. But then on the other hand, it's like, okay, yeah, you're struggling and so is everybody else, but you don't have a right to go out and just kill your whole family. And then nobody else do that. So why did you do that, Charles? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, everybody was struggling. Everybody was desperate, was scared, were losing their homes and their farms. Why did you, Charles, decide to take out your whole family? Okay. And this is the second theory that reports have come up with, was that, remember I told y'all that the neighbors and Fanny believed that Charles had been essaying his oldest daughter, Marie. So this belief didn't just come from anywhere. Neighbors had observed that Charles and Marie were just super, super close, like beyond the standard father-daughter relationship. He was super protective and controlling of her. Marie had, like, her behavior started to change. She became very withdrawn, and she was just, Charles became really fixated on her appearance. But here's where it gets crazy. The fact that Charles had become fixated on her, people believed that Marie was pregnant at the time of her death. Now, I have not been able to find any reports that, I don't know if they did autopsies during that time, that say whether they found a fetus in her belly when she died. But that's what the word on the street was at the time, was that Marie was pregnant, and Charles didn't want this secret to come out. So I guess, like, maybe that plus the financial pressure just got the best of him. But it's like, Charles, really? You essaying your daughter? And so in 1929, this kind of scandal would have destroyed him. Okay, he probably would have been shunned. He probably would have been murdered and like hung or something by like some of the men in the town. He would have been a public disgrace. Okay, like a complete ruin. He thought his farm wasn't making no money then. It for damn sure wouldn't have been making no money after this secret came out. And so this is what I have also found, was that allegedly Fanny knew. Fanny knew and saw that there was an inappropriate relationship between Marie and her father. So this is my theory. I think that Fanny was gonna kill Charles, because as a mother, how can you not? If you find out your husband is essaying your oldest daughter and then she's pregnant with your baby, you gotta kill him. You got to, and so I feel like maybe Fanny had figured it out, and Charles was like, oh no, like maybe he didn't think that Fanny knew about the relationship, but from what I have found, Fanny knew. Okay, or she had a very high suspicion. And so I think she was going to take matters into her own hands. But maybe Charles was like, oh, you can't leave me or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just could have been a whole bunch of stuff. But I also feel like maybe Fanny didn't get the opportunity to act on it because, again, this was in the Great Depression, and maybe she just didn't have a way of leaving Charles and taking her kids with her at the time. But either way, I would have left him. Okay, I would have left him, because once I find out you done hurt my child and I done bear 8 of these for you, bye. You got to go. You got to go. And one of the last theories that I was able to find is that maybe this was just a mixture of everything. It was a combination of fear of his secret, of him essaying his daughter getting out, financial pressure from the Great Depression, paranoia, control, mental deterioration, abuse. You know, maybe this was just a conglomerate of like everything combining and him just being overwhelmed. But to me, it is still no excuse. Like, you literally annihilated your entire family. The only one that didn't get annihilated was his oldest son. And I already told y'all why I think that. Because I think Charles did it intentionally. I think he intentionally sent out his son so that his son could not stop him from killing his family. And could you imagine coming home and finding all 7 of your siblings like dead, plus your parents? Oh, that is just horrible. To live with that is just, that's a lot. That is a lot. Post funeral, the town believed that it was just haunted now. Like, hundreds of people showed up to attend the funeral. There were supposedly like little small caskets. Because remember I told you all that there were a couple of like school-age children. So they had like the baby's casket, the 2-year-old, the teenagers. Like, it was just a lot. There are reports of like people fainting and passing out at the funeral. And one of the things that really stuck out to me about this funeral was that when they were buried, they all share a plot. So you know how like sometimes you'll have like families that are all buried together, but they all have their own single plot? No, this time they all share the exact same plot. I just think this is a constant reminder that like of what happened December 25th, 1929. So one of the interesting things that I was able to find post this case was that the Lawson family home kind of became like a museum almost. Like, people were like, oh, it's haunted, there's voices, they hear footsteps. It was like kind of been, I'm not gonna say memorialized, but like there's still a like little house on the land. I just think that's kind of weird. Like, I don't know if I would visit it. Like, I'm not that deep down in true crime, but might be a nice little field trip to see where this, you know, really took place. But supposedly, the oldest son, he had basically left the house as like, he would charge people to take tours of the house. So like, people wanted to like see what the house looked like before all the family was annihilated. He would charge them like $10 or $20 to view the house and view the land. I don't know, like, I kind of feel a way about that, because it's like, why are you capitalizing off of your family's murder? And so then, like, that kind of makes me think, what if the son and Charles planned this? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if? I don't know. Maybe I'm just putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with whatever I want. But I'm just saying, to make money off of a tragedy is insane. Okay, I've said it once and I'll say it again. This case was very intentional, very methodical, and very planned. To me, when a murderer takes the time to be so methodical and so intentional, I feel like they are super intelligent, because I don't know, I just feel like you're super intelligent. This case was just the timing around Christmas, from the family photo and you buying them new dresses and petticoats, to, you know, taking them out in town, and just how everything was done, where he shot Fanny first and then shot the children, because I believe he did that on purpose. Because he shot Fanny because he probably knew that she would protect her children with her life. So he was like, nah, I gotta take her out first. It was just a lot. And this case has really left me with more questions than answers, because I feel like with this case, because it was so long ago that there are not enough resources and evidence surrounding this case from that time. So I feel like we're missing out on a lot of it. Like, I want to know, like, did Charles write a letter? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like there's so many questions that I have with this case, and not every case leaves me feeling like that. Some cases I'm able to be like, okay, I understand why they did it. This is their motive. Case closed. But cases like this really, really make you think. Seriously, could you imagine going to Target and coming back to your entire family being annihilated? Like, how would you feel? I would honestly just be heartbroken. Like, as much as I don't agree with the son making money off of this tragedy, I still feel for him. Because it's like, at the end of the day, he lost his entire family. He was only 17 or 18 as well. So he was just a child. But it's like he literally lost his entire family and he had no one. You know what I'm saying? The one thing I was able to find was that the son ended up passing away in 1945. Maybe grief just got to him, but I was unable to find the cause of his death. So here's the question that still haunts me about this case nearly 100 years later. Was Charles Lawson a man who snapped under pressure? Or was he a man who killed to protect a despicable secret? And which answer is more terrifying? If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Sincerely Jazz and Messy Motives, and leave me a review on the show. And coming up next on our Jasmine's Holiday Countdown series, whatever the name of it is, y'all, we're diving into number 3, a case that shook an entire family tree and left behind a trail of unanswered questions. We're diving into the case of William Wallace. And this time we're going back to Cali. You do not want to mix this next story. And remember that not every motive makes sense, but it's always messy.